Okay, guys, welcome to our college webinar. For those who don't know me, I'm Neil Powell, Technical Director for the PATS Girls Academy program. And we're lucky to have two college coaches here that actually are very familiar with Clair from Cal Baptist. Hi, Kristen.
Hello.
And Kristy Kiel from Point Loma. So do you guys want to just introduce yourselves? And we'll just go from there.
Sounds good. Go ahead, Kristy.
As Nick said, I'm Kristy Kiel. I'm the head coach at Point Loma Nazarene University. I've been there for 2 years. I've coached at a couple other schools. I love the game and I love the age of college students. I am also a mother of 2 and a wife, and I love those jobs as well.
Can you tell us where you were before?
Yeah, I started my career where I played, which was Westmont College. It is how I know Kristen. And for those of you that don't know, she was an excellent goalkeeper when she was in college. I do need to say that. She is an excellent coach, but she was a tremendous, phenomenal goalkeeper.
Kristy was a great midfielder as well.
And then I went and coached at the University of Arkansas, which is a Power 5 school, which is a really fun experience to get to have. But I found my way back to the D2 level, which is what Point Loma currently is at, and love the balance that I have there.
That's great. Kristen?
Well, my first year in coaching was actually Kristy's senior year at Westmont. We both played at Westmont, played for the same coach, Mike Giuliano. My first year in college coaching was her senior year. So we've known each other for a number of years, go way back. So, and then Neil, let's not forget that I've known you since just a little bit longer than that. So it's 98, 99, working with FC Santa Barbara back in the day. So, so really thankful. Thanks for having us on here today. And we're excited to have a good chat. I'm Kristen. I'm at California Baptist University. I've been there for 13, going on 14 years. Started at Westmont, went up through UC Santa Barbara to Wisconsin, Milwaukee, came out back to California, born and raised here. And so have been at CBU through the NAI to Division II to Division I transition. And it's a great school. There's a number of great schools around the country. And, you know, I think what's exciting for students going into their collegiate experience is about finding the right fit for them. And as coaches, we want to help provide as much of that information as possible to help them make an informed decision that's the best fit for them.
No, that's great. And I think the great thing about having you two guys on, it's you've got experience in most levels. I know we haven't mentioned junior college, we haven't mentioned Division III, but 3 of the 5 levels there are, you guys have experience at coaching at. So I'm sure you can share your wealth of knowledge with our students. I'm just going to do a screen share here so everyone can see our little agenda that we're going to go through today. There we are. So we're going to start just very basically. We've done our introduction. So what is NCAA? And obviously within NCAA, there's Division 1, 2, and 3. So what is the difference as far as maybe academics and as far as athletics with those programs?
So there's essentially 2 different governing bodies that govern college sports in the United States. There's the NCAA, which holds divisions 1, 2, and 3. And then there's NAIA, which there are 2 divisions, but mostly function as 1 division in NAIA. Obviously, there's JUCO as well. NCAA's governing body is probably a little bit more robust and thorough than NAIA. NAIA is a little bit more grassroots, led by coaches, smaller school, smaller scale, not necessarily lesser soccer. I'd love to be clear about that for those of you wondering. Honestly, at the top of most levels, they can compete on any given day, aside from probably top 40 Division I. Other than that, a lot can compete with each other on any given day. So you kind of have to find what fits for you, but it's different ways of governing, emphasis on the importance of different areas. Kristen, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Well, Division I and Division II in NCAA have scholarships. Division III does not. Those are more academic based. There are a number of great academic schools, Division I and II, but Division III, there are no athletic scholarships. They're only academic scholarships. And Division III, same thing. Their top teams can, Division II, Division III, their top teams, like the top NAIA teams, can compete against some of the best Division I teams. So it's not a delegation by skill or how good they are. It's primarily based on size, demographics, finances, budgetarily, location. There's a number of reasons why schools are in different divisions, but it's definitely not because of quality of play. That's not how they're divided.
So yeah, I was going to ask that. So why would a school be in Division III and not II, or II and not in I? And I know you can't talk about your own institution in particular, but why would an institution go from NAIA to Division II to Division I? What would be the criteria for that, and why would a program do that?
Programs have done that typically for a number of reasons. Schools get larger, wanting to have more of a presence on a national scale. There's a number of reasons for that. And so, but as you go up in each level, there is more of a commitment time-wise, financially for the school, time-wise for the student athlete. And so Division I is, Division I, the top teams are all quite good, but I think the difference is as you continue to go up in each level, there's more required, from time to money to resources. And so I think, the school as well as the student athlete needs to, they have to be willing to make those commitments at those levels.
Kristy, anything to add on there?
No, I think I think expectation, commitment, requirement, those are great terms to use as you do kind of move up. Not that NAIA D3, D2 coaches don't require or demand a lot from you, but it's certainly very different. As you know, I think there's, I referenced Power 5 earlier. Really, the strength of those conferences comes because of the amount of money that they have to be able to give out to those athletes. And so that's a whole different level, but with that comes a lot of expectation and requirement.
Right. Yeah, one of my questions lower down the agenda was, how does a player, or how does a girl choose what type of school to go to? So what kind of student would typically go to a JC, to a junior college?
That's a great.
I would think,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say there's JC, there are a lot of really good junior college and community colleges. California, there are no scholarship junior colleges in California. Outside in various other states there are, but you can do that if you want to be close to home, for financial reasons. There could be a number of reasons, but the junior college route is still a very, very good route. So I think sometimes it gets a bit of a bad rap, but it's, there's a number of reasons academically, school, maybe there's a pre-major. I know some junior colleges, if you go through their, for example, a nursing major, it allows you better access to maybe a UC nursing program or a different university nursing program type thing. So there's a lot of great draws to the community college and the junior college route as well.
I will add a potential other reason might be academically. There are certain qualifications you have to a lot of times to get into a school, but also to be a qualifier for the NCAA. And if you don't meet that qualification, you can take your time to do that at a JC and then transfer to an NCAA sanctioned school.
And you mentioned the finance as well. It's maybe a little bit cheaper to stay close to home and just take your general ed at a junior college before going off and spending the next 2 to 3 years or more for those people that go to higher education. So Division III students, what do they look like?
They tend to be, and again, these are sweeping stereotypes. Obviously, I thought I was going to end up at a big Division I school and marry a quarterback, and I ended up at an NAIA school and married a baseball player. So I think oftentimes what we think our big ideas that we have are certainly attainable, and other times other things sneak in there and are unassuming in ways that end up beautiful and wonderful. So again, with this stereotype, a Division III, as Kristen talked about earlier, is probably going to be a highly, highly academic student. A lot of times you'll find, I find a lot of, and Kristen, you can agree or disagree, but I find a lot of students, high-level athletes who are either Division III or Ivy League. So maybe they're not quite the talent level for Ivies, and so they end up Division III, where they're academically going to be encouraged, supported, challenged, whatever adjective they'd like to throw in there, in ways that maybe they would have trouble finding elsewhere, or are more suited for them at a particular D3 school. So it's going to be a highly driven, academic-minded person who wants that to be their dominant focus. You know, obviously, I think Kristen and I would both say, you know, it's academics and then it's soccer right here. and I think D3, or, you know, academics here and soccer takes its rightful place somewhere here. And I think that's a wonderful way to receive an education and still get to play sport.
Absolutely. So then I think that Division 2 and 1 may be similar. So how would they differ?
How would they what? Sorry.
Differ.
Oh, different.
What the difference between a Division 1 athlete and a Division 2 athlete, if anything?
I would say there's not much. There's, the higher you go, the margins become smaller. And that's where I think, you know, we talked a little bit, the willingness, the commitment time-wise for academics, for athletics. I think that their top Division II athletes can also play at top Division I schools. I think it's about finding the right fit. Most D2s, for the most part, don't have the budgets or choose to allocate their budgets differently than some Division I schools, which is totally okay. And I think it's just a matter of what the school, the Division II school is about as well. Because there's a lot of very good Division II athletic programs that could easily make the jump, but it's what's best for the university overall.
And I don't mind saying this. I think it used to bother me when I was at Westmont and I was in NAI to hear Division I schools talk. But now, having been at, gosh, 3 different levels, I really don't mind saying, I do think if you are a national team caliber level player, a lot of times you're going to end up, and again, if you're playing on our national team, probably should end up somewhere in those Power 5s or somewhere in the D1 level, because that is where a lot of the individual top talent is going. Again, that pool is small though. How many are on our rotating roster for our national team? I don't know, 40, I think maybe is what it is. And so I do think there's, what I hear a lot at the Division II level and what I promote a lot and believe in a lot for myself is that balance, which means there's going to be a give and take. And I think at the Division I level, there's a little bit less of a give and take, or as Kristen used earlier, a little bit more of a requirement. More is going to be asked of you because more is given to you. And with that, more opportunity to pursue your sport long-term.
I think, do you guys know Bahani? Bahani was a coach at Stanford and then he was a coach at Cornell for years. He now coaches club soccer in Northern California and he's got some other projects. But I remember having a conversation with him years ago and he said the difference between a Stanford athlete and a Cornell athlete was I had really high academic kids at Stanford, but they were soccer players. Cornell, I had really high academic people that loved playing soccer. Mm-hmm. So there was a difference with their mentality. And obviously Cornell's an Ivy, and you talked about that being similar to Division III, but obviously Stanford is at the top of the level of Division I. So yeah, that always stuck with me.
You have a kid like Sophia, an athlete, student athlete like Sophia Smith, who she just left, right? She just signed. So you have a Stanford junior who is going to leave Stanford to go play professionally. You know, that's a different level. I don't have players leaving Point Loma to go play professionally, but they do love the game, and they're trying to become nurses or doctors or teachers alongside that.
Right, that's good. Kristen, anything to add with that?
I think that's a great synopsis.
That's good. I'll just share the screen again here. Okay, so going down here, we've now got the recruiting rules. So would you say that 8th grade, freshman and sophomore year are all having to do similar things as far as recruiting and with the rules that have to come in with NCAA? And again, maybe you can explain with NEIA and junior college and NCAA, there are different rules. There's different rules with Division 1, 2, and 3 as well. Hopefully this isn't confusing everybody. So what would your advice be for an 8th grader, maybe freshman, maybe sophomore year, wanting to go to an NCAA school, for example?
Kristen's really good at the rules, so I think she should talk about these.
Well, the rules are constantly changing, especially right now in these uncertain times. The rules are, it's a fluid situation, certainly. But as far as the recruiting situation, for example, if you're going to go to a Division I NCAA school, offers and official visits cannot be done until August 1st going into their junior year. Coaches can start contacting them June 15th going into their junior year. Anything prior to that, coaches are not allowed to respond or communicate with coaches. Student athletes can still contact the coaches via email, leave voice messages if you can catch them in the office. You can chat with them, but you know, probably the best way of being able to interact would probably be at an ID camp, which I know we'll talk about here in a little bit, because camps can be a great tool of information in the recruiting process. And I think that's probably for 8th graders, excuse me, through sophomores, that might be just the best route at this point for them.
Kristy, you're not just going to pass the buck completely here.
I don't have too much to add, although I might stress a little bit. You don't need to start too early. I just want to say that, you know, I'll tell this quick story if that's okay, Neil. I'll keep it really quick. When I was at Arkansas, I think I spent most of my spring talking to 8th graders my last year there, because we could. Again, like Kristen said, the rules are fluid, they're alive, and at that point we could receive their phone calls. And I didn't love that feeling of talking to 8th graders, but I had a kid who was from Tulsa, Oklahoma, who I just kind of said, let's stop talking about soccer for a second. What do you think you want to do, you know, in 10 years when you're finally in college? And she said, Coach, I just finished watching SpongeBob. I don't know what I want to do in 8 years. And I said, I sold. Come play for us because I like your perspective. But I think it's okay to start learning about what you might like when you walk onto a campus to explore or maybe get in front of some coaches. But I just want to encourage you to love the game for a little bit longer before you have to start asking a lot of those questions or diving deep inside to know, what do I want this college experience to look like? And the only time I would say maybe it's important to start asking those questions earlier is kind of what I alluded to in the last question, which is if you have opportunities to play national team level, then you probably have to have your focus narrowed a little bit earlier. And that's not going to be everyone. But it could be one of you that's listening. And so maybe you narrow that search, and for the rest of you, get better, work on getting better and loving the game. But Kristen addressed the rules are same on the D2 level. June 15th after your junior year is when we start contacting you. However, the D2 rules aren't quite where Division I is right now. And so we can receive your phone calls and talk to you prior to your junior year. I'm not actually sure, and Kristen, are you aware of D3 rules?
I'm not as familiar with the D3 rules, so I can't speak too much to that.
Yeah, the only thing I'll speak to is just noticing what colleagues do, and I believe the recruiting process is maybe a little bit later. Is that fair to say that maybe it's, and part of that is because of the academics, you know, you have to get into the school, you have to be certain that you can get into the school. And so their process is a little bit later, but I'm not sure of their rules.
And then
NAIA.
I know when Kristen was at an NAIA school, we had a conversation, I remember way back on a field, and she said, I can talk to any of your kids. There's no rules in NAIA. Is that still the case?
Christy's been there more recently than I have, but there are far less rules. I'm sure, I think there might be more, they have added a few over the years, but like they've added their own eligibility center like the NCAA has as well. But my understanding, and Kristy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that, you know, they can speak to a student on the field of play or after a game, or meet them for lunch at, you know, sandwich shop afterwards, or just talk to them pretty much at any time.
Yes, that is, I think it's still the case, which makes it a lot of fun to be able to speak to a coach at the NAIA level and learn a little bit more about that school, maybe a little bit earlier than you would other schools.
Okay, so let's go to sophomores then. So they can't talk to schools until the end of their sophomore year, June 15th. So what should a sophomore be doing then? Should they have a list set up of X amount of schools? You mentioned ID camps. Should they walk around schools to get the feel? What should they be doing?
I think with the tournaments and the showcases, it's a tremendous opportunity, because we're traveling already, for students just to go to a couple of universities in around town on their downtime. Just walk around. You know, do you want to go to a rural university? Do you want to go to an urban university? Do you want to go to a small school? Do you want to go to a large 40,000 person school? I think it's just a great opportunity to walk around. Like, can I see myself here? Do I like this? Do I want to go far from home? Do I want to go close to home? But there's also geographic differences. You know, a school in LA is going to be different than a school in New York or Boston. And so with as much traveling as club soccer does, it's just a great opportunity to kind of take an informal look just with you and your family or your teammates, and just, hey, can I see myself here? I'm not sure, but it's just part of that information gathering process that helps you make an informed decision at the end of the day.
I echo everything Kristen said. I think it's great. I would add, talk to your coaches. They're there to help you. And you guys at Pats have tremendous coaches that are very well connected and can help you in that process, and might be a great educator for you on not necessarily the level that they think you can play and now you're stuck in that level, but more, hey, here's, where do you see yourself? What would you like to be doing? What would you like that environment to be like? Maybe start just asking questions to get you thinking. So utilize the resources that you have around you to help think through what kind of experience you'd like to have.
Well, thank you for your comments, and I agreed there. So, okay, so we've become juniors and we're not committed yet. Should we panic?
Absolutely.
What should we be doing?
Absolutely, you should panic a ton. I'm teasing, obviously. Don't panic at all. I always say there's going to be a place you can play. It might not be your first choice, and that can be hard. It can be hard to give up that dream of wherever you put the school in there. You thought you were going to play at UCLA, and you're not recruited by junior year. There's a chance, although you technically can't be recruited until your junior year, there's a chance that you're not going to be able to play there, and that can be a really hard reality. Let that sink in for a minute, and then figure out where maybe you could play. But I think do not panic, but I think now you can start being a little bit more aggressive in your approach, making sure that schools can see you, maybe heading, now that your list might be a little bit more narrow, maybe heading to those ID camps specifically, getting connected with those coaches in those programs. Is that really a place that you like and can see yourself? Do you get enough time in front of those coaches? Again, lean on your club coaches or your other resources. They're there to help you get connected with coaches and find an environment that works for you.
And I would just add, you know, that, again, I echo, I think Pats has a phenomenal coaching structure and a great resources for prospective student athletes. And I would just say that, you know, getting some honest feedback from your coach is very important, because the coaches, we talk to the college coaches all the time. And, you know, sometimes, Neil, I'll call you up and say, you know, for one, you know, it could be maybe there's an injury, or a transfer, if for one reason or other, coaches call you, and I know one of them, like, hey, I'm looking for an outside back. Do you know of any? You know, and I appreciate that you're going to give me very honest feedback. And I think it's important that you get that honest feedback from the coaches so that, one, you can make yourself a better player, but also they can help you realize what's the best level for me. I want to play as high as I can, but I also want to have a very specific academic concentration. Well, how do I bring those two together? Or maybe the club coaches can make calls on your behalf and say, you know, call school, you know, are you looking for central midfielders in this next class? Yes, no, okay, well, that'll help you also whittle down the search process as well. Or, you know, if you're a center mid and you're looking at a school that plays pretty direct, well, your coach can also probably give you some very honest advice. And, you know, is this a good fit for you? They know you a lot better than the club coaches do at that point. So they'll be able to give you some very honest and helpful feedback.
That's good. Okay, so I'm entering my senior year. Still nothing. Do those things stay the same?
Yeah. we had 2 all-conference players who committed, and part of it was in the coaching transition. So, but sometimes those things happen, and a school that wasn't on your radar all of a sudden is, because there was a coaching change. But 2 all-conference players that committed in April of their senior year. And those stories happen everywhere in between. You know, I've had sophomores commit, again, because they're verbal commitments, and because at the D2 level, I can still receive their phone calls. So a sophomore and a senior in April of their senior year. And so again, I think it's the same thing. Sorry for the repetitive nature of it, but lean on your club coaches, ask for honest assessments. Kristen's spot on. If senior year, if again, your list of 5 schools, none of them are interested, then maybe you need to reassess of where you should be looking, and asking your coach who gets to work with you every day that's a great resource for you. Get in front of those schools a little bit more. Different Division II, you can go train if a coach invites you for one training session. Division I, you cannot. So a camp or a training session, NAI, you can train. So there's a wide variety of things that you can do, but maybe you need to narrow your search a little bit more, or even just scrap it and reassess and figure out where might be a good fit for you to play and do school.
Yeah, we just had 2 players commit to Division I schools on some financial help in the last 2 months before we got shut down. So, you know, just reiterate, that's at the DA level. So it's never too late.
And like Kristen said, you know, you might end up with an injury you weren't expecting in March of a given year. And so you'll call Neil and say, hey, I just had a big time player get injured. Do you have any outside backs? So right. You just never know.
And how about those seniors that are committed? Should they just stop playing club, or what should they do?
I would encourage prospective students to play at the highest level for as long as they can, because you're going to go into the next level of college regardless of the level, and you know it's going to be faster, they're going to be stronger, quicker, the game's going to be a lot faster. So the longer you can play at the highest level and get the highest level of training, that'll put yourself in a better position to be successful. What I've seen over the years is players that typically stop playing club, or they stop playing on a competitive club, they are less prepared typically because they're putting less time into their preparation. They have not particularly performed as well their freshman year as others that have put in the work consistently and continue to put themselves in a position to be successful.
That's good.
Listen up, ladies. This is really important. I hate to tell you, but your coaches are right. And Kristen is right. You have to stay playing. There's nothing more frustrating to me and to your club coaches to have 7 people show up to a training session in their senior year because you've put a lot of hard work in and you've gotten committed and now it's set for you. But that doesn't mean that your position is set, your amount of playing time is set, your conditioning is set. Nothing is set except for maybe your scholarship for that time or your spot for that time. And so you need to continue the work.
That's good advice. Thank you. We'll just go back and share the screen, so we're right here. I think we should maybe clump the next 2 things together. So academic requirements and then we'll talk about scholarships along with academics and soccer and how they work. Can you put one on top of the other? Can you not? What percentages work? Is there such thing as a full ride? And as I said, the big thing here is the academic requirements into certain schools. So I know that it's pretty much individual, that part, but what can you guys share on that?
Well, first of all, the NCAA, to be eligible for Division I, you have to have minimum 2.2 GPA. ACT, SAT test scores is on a sliding scale. So if you have a higher GPA, you can have a lower test score for eligibility. But that does not mean that's the same thing for your university. So it is possible to get into a university and not be cleared yet by the eligibility center, because you also have to have a certain amount of core courses, and depending on which level you are playing at, those core courses will vary as well.
Okay, so if we just freeze that, eligibility center, what is that?
That is, it's run by the NCAA, and basically you pay a fee. I want to say it might be around $85, I believe. I know it changes a little bit every year, but you submit all of your academic transcripts, and I encourage our prospective student athletes to do it after every semester, just because it's a lot easier. And you also submit your test scores once you take them with the College Board, whether it's the SAT or the ACT. And then your senior year, you submit, you just go in and click a little button, and you request amateur certification as well, which basically means you did not receive anything money-wise or gifts in exchange for playing. And so it needs to be academic as well as amateurism. But you have to be eligible in order to play in any NCAA Division I, II, or III institution. So.
Okay, perfect.
And as Kristen alluded to earlier, the NAI also has an eligibility center. The NCAA is probably a little bit quicker. So if you're doing NAI, you want to get that stuff in as quick as you can in order to be ready to play by season. In terms of academics and scholarships, I also want to emphasize that, so listen up again. Your academics matter a lot. And for those of you who think, I've had players at 2 of the schools I've coached at who assume that they're going to be able to come just because they verbally committed. And academically, when the time came, test scores were a little bit low. Usually that's the case. They took it one time. So I have two things for you. The first one is a lot of academic scholarships are available for you at a lot of schools. And because of that, you want to keep as high of a GPA as you possibly can, and test and retest as many times as you need on SAT or ACT to try and climb that ladder of academic scholarship. The second reason for that is because at most schools, although not all, you can stack aid. So whether that's athletic aid, academic aid, and sometimes FAFSA or need-based aid, you can do that. Again, schools are different, so you want to figure out the schools that you're looking at, what they allow you to stack, but a lot of times they can, and so that helps us to create better programs, better teams. I would say, and Kristen, you can throw your number in there, but maybe 80% of the freshmen, of the 10 freshmen I have coming in, are coming in on some sort of academic aid. And the reason being, I want to create as strong a team as possible. And so that helps oftentimes the scholarship dollars go a bit farther.
One of the other benefits to stacking, as Kristy alluded to, is you want to put together the best team possible. And depending on which university you're at, there might be roster requirements. Or, I mean, for example, Division I has 14 scholarships. And depending on if team has 22 people or 32 or 35 people, full rides are rare. They are potential, but you have a better opportunity of stacking a full ride, so to speak. Maybe you're into music, you can stack that, depending on the school, with academic, and then maybe with some soccer.
Kristen seems to have frozen there. I don't know if she's mid-sentence.
Whether it's...
Oh, there she is. Mm-hmm. Oh, she seems frozen again.
I think, can you see me now?
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully that'll stay. So, but stacking is a great tool. Kristy, how many scholarships are you allocate at Division II?
Yeah, so we have 9, and I know NAI has 11. Division I has 14, so that just gives you your range. And as Kristen said, there's very few full rides, and so much of that depends on how much your school costs, how much your academic scholarships are, in terms of being able to get maybe a combined full ride.
So how do you guys determine then where your money goes? If you've only got, did you say you have 11? So if
We
you only have,
we have 9.
okay, so if you have 9, is that 9 full rides? How do you determine how you divide that?
Yeah, like Kristen said, very, very few full rides out there. I would say at our level, I don't know many that even have any. We don't have any full rides where it's full athletic aid. So it's split up obviously based on need by that year, which is a lot of the recruiting process. Goalkeepers, sorry, yours is a little bit harder. There's only one spot for you 95% of the time. But you know, the rest of you is a little bit timing too. How many defenders did they graduate, and are they in need of defenders that year? Are you versatile? Can you play winger or outside back? And that might give you a little bit more of an opportunity at a school. So we do spread it out, hence the need or desire to have strong academic students, where at schools that are academic, that award academic, high academics, we can stack those.
So by stacking them, so the 9 is just soccer money, not academic money.
Yep, exactly. So somebody might get 15,000 on academic money, 10,000 from athletic. Now you're at 25,000, and if our tuition is 36, then you're 11 off of tuition.
Right. That's good there. So just moving down the list again, unless you've got anything to add on that, Kristen.
She frozen again?
It appears so. I'll just do a share screen while we're waiting for her just to jump back in there. Okay, so yeah, so we talked about ID camps briefly. Oh. So we talked about ID camps briefly. So with ID camps, the camps you always see advertising, I get lots of flyers through. Welcome back, Kristen, by the way. So we get lots of camps flyers through where you've got 50 coaches, 400 spots. How do those work? Do you guys recommend those? Can they be good? How do we decide to do those mass camps?
Yeah, I think younger, not a bad idea. You know, I know Stanford runs a pretty large camp and has some success doing so, and a wide variety of coaches. I used to work a camp out at ASU that had a large number of athletes there, and it was great to get some exposure. I think as you get older, I would again narrow that search and try and attend schools where you're really interested in.
I think ID camps are just a great tool of information. They can be pricey at times, so kind of having an idea of what you're looking for, either school-wise or if there's one where there's a lot of coaches present, just to maximize financially. You know, I really like the school, or you know, there's going to be 30 coaches there watching me, and contact them in advance to let them know that you're there. But I think it's a great opportunity to be seen, and to be seen maybe a little bit, just a little bit more than a traditional tournament or showcase.
So lots of our players ask me, hey, I got an invite to ID camp from this school, this school, and this school. Would they just be generic things sent out to the whole mailing list, or is there genuine interest? How can you tell?
That's a great question. And I think a really appropriate question, as Kristen said, as you're trying to figure out how to spend your dollars. Sometimes it can be generic. Sometimes it can be generic to your team because a coach went and saw your team play and the team looked good. And so it's more, hey, I saw your team play and want to tell you about a camp. And generic's not always bad. But again, if you want to be a better steward of your resources in some ways, then you might, whether it's a conversation you have with a coach or an email exchange with a coach in particular, or even from your club coach that reached out and said, hey, do you really want them at your camp? And said, yes, this is my interest level. So I think asking a lot of those questions as you make a decision about camp is probably the best way to go about that process.
That's good advice.
Mm-hmm. Well, go ahead. Prior to junior year, the only thing schools can really send are camp questionnaires. And so I agree, just going through have your club coach give that college coach or program a call and say, hey, so-and-so received this. They can gauge the interest level if the other coach is willing to share that. But I think overall, it's a great way to be seen and to get to know the coaches as well, and to see, does this coaching style also kind of mesh with my playing style? Is this a good fit for me?
That's good. Okay, I think we're down to the last couple here, so I'm just going to share this. So we'll touch here on, should players use a recruiting service? You know, do I need to be big, fast, and strong to be recruited? And then how do I choose where to go? So I think they can maybe clump together a little bit there. So we start with the recruiting service.
Kristy, you want to take that?
I prefer to hear from you directly, and I don't want to offend anybody who might work for a recruiting service or have a connection or even have used one. I don't think they're all bad. I was very lost in the recruiting process when I was getting recruited, which was a little while ago now. So it's a little bit different, but I think a recruiting service may have been helpful at a time. But I tend to think most of you, I know you at Pat's, but most high-level club, especially in California, you have a recruiting service in your coaches. So use them. They're there to help you. Again, I will say that. And if you're not getting help, I would encourage you to ask more. Ask a different coach. Maybe Neil's very well connected. So he's one that I know really well. And a lot of clubs have those types of people. And so all that to say, I tend to want to hear directly from a student athlete. I don't recruit as much from a recruiting service. It's not to say it never happens, but most of the time it's directly from a club coach or an athlete themselves.
Yeah, actually on staff, I know my name's coming up a little bit here, but on staff we have Daniel Richards, actually a college coach as well. He's at Pomona. We just brought on Randy Dodge. I don't think you guys didn't know that. So we got another college coach there. And then Martin McGuire is very well connected, as is Jenny Hammond, knows people all over the country. And then Sarah Devine was a college coach as well. So, and Mac as well is at Chapman now. So just within our staff there's a lot of experience. So.
Yeah, I didn't realize, I talked to you, Neil, you know so much, Neil, but that's a great call there. You guys have loads of experience and connection.
Mm-hmm. I think regarding service, it's just up to the student if they want it. It's not necessarily. But I would agree with Kristy. I prefer to hear from someone directly. I think most coaches don't like to get mass emails from, whether it's either from you or a recruiting service, and lists every college coach in California, because it doesn't show the specific interest in a particular school. But I think it's really up to the student athlete and their families. I don't think it's required or necessary, but it can, for some people, it can be quite helpful. So it's just
that brings up something really good. Actually, you're saying what you want to hear from them. So when kids are contacting you, what do you want to see? A long email? I won Surf Cup when I was 12. I did this. I scored 57 goals in AYSO. Do you want to see that, or do you want it to be short and sweet? Why they want to go to your school, or do you want some clips from their huddle or some highlights? What do you want from these kids?
I would say for me, I'd like a short clip of highlights. And then if we need to see more, we would ask for that. Just something short and sweet, and also why you're interested in that school. And it's okay to cut and paste. Just make sure you don't say, dear Coach St. Clair at Point Loma University. Well, that's, coaches, we know that sometimes you're sending a lot of emails out, just proofread basically. So, but I think, it can all be quite helpful though.
I would agree with that, especially right now. You're going to need to be sending some film out probably because we're not able to see you play. Even those of you that are sophomores going into junior year, just an introduction, I think could be really relevant right now before hopefully we're back on the field in the fall and able to see you play. So I would encourage that. But I do think short and sweet, a little bit about the school, what you're interested in academically, or why you are drawn to a school like Point Loma or Cal Baptist, or fill in your blank. And then a few clips would be wonderful. It doesn't need to be long and you don't need to spend a lot of money doing so. But I do think a few clips just to give us an introduction is a great way to go.
Oh, that's great. So yeah, the next one. So do you need to be 6 foot, run 112 seconds to go to play college soccer?
No, I think it really just depends. You need to find out what each school is looking for. At least most colleges have different recruiting cycles. For example, goalkeepers not gonna be recruited every year. Center mids depends, look at the rosters. How many did they graduate? Strikers, defenders. Your college coach, your club coach can also call the college coach and say, hey, I've got, player X, Y, or Z that, I think would be a good fit. Are you looking for those positions? But I think at the end of the day, it still just comes down to, what's the right fit for you. And it's a two-way street with the college coaches. In the same way you're looking for the best, the right fit, as are we as coaches as well. And it's just, most coaches want players that are industrious, that love the game, that are willing to put in the work to get better, that are really good teammates. Coaches, we also kind of watch how a team warms up. How do you treat your teammates? How do you approach your preparation, whether we go watch a training session or a game? So, we're looking at all of that quite a bit as well.
I'm 5'6" and 135 pounds, not anymore, but when I was a freshman in college. So it's possible to not be really big and strong and fast and still have a pretty good collegiate career. So I do want to say, though, this is my other listen up. Pay attention to the style that you want to play or you're good at and the university that you're interested in, because that's not always going to match up. And it could be your dream school and you could be miserable playing there. I went and played in Sweden after I graduated, and I was a central midfielder, and I watched the ball go over me most of the time. And the only reason it was a great experience is because I was in another country, not because I enjoyed the game as much. And so you have to decide what kind of fits your style, or are you willing to adapt a little bit, and are you able to adapt a little bit in your style? So pay attention before you make a big commitment to a school that it fits for you stylistically. I think that's a really important thing.
That's great advice. So
actually, real quick, Neil, if I can add to give you just a little bit of a picture, I believe that most really successful teams need a variety of players. Not everyone would feel that way, and some of it is stylistically, but look at our national team. So I'll take you Crystal Dunn into Rose Lavelle into Tobin Heath. I mean, you got an athlete, you have an athlete and a very strong technical player, and then you have a technical player. And all three of them help the team function to do what they want to do. And so any successful team probably has to have a variety. Where do you fall in that variety?
So I've got my top 3 schools. Okay, this is the last thing here. I've got the top 3 schools. One of them's got fantastic soccer, doesn't have my favored major. The third one is in a perfect location, but it doesn't really have either. How do I choose?
You want to take that, Kristy?
Roll a dice. No, that's a really, really good question. I think depending on your network of people in your life that you respect, give sound advice, I would have some real soul searching. So maybe you go back to each of those campuses if it's within financially and time-wise, and see how you feel on that campus. Talk to your coaches, parents, Try to talk to your peers a little bit more. Explore your education. So nursing is a great example, and we have a strong nursing school at Point Loma, and we do allow students to come in as freshmen and do nursing and soccer, but transfers cannot. And so if you want to transfer into Point Loma and you want to do nursing, then you have to explore, are you willing to be an applied health science major and do nursing school after? So Neil gave the first example of they don't really have my desired major. Yeah, but do they have something that would allow you to still do the career you want to do because you like the school a lot and you like the soccer program, but you also can't decide based on soccer. And so I think that becomes just a process of talking, of processing, of exploring again one last time and seeing what's a good fit for you, or rolling the dice.
I think that's a great synopsis. At the end of the day, it's about finding the best, the right fit for you. And the only way you can do that is to go to campus, go to admissions, talk to just random students, how they like it there. You know, you might be thinking, oh, I just want to go, I mean, California, what's the farthest university I can go to? Or you might be like, you know, I just don't want to go, I'd rather go down the street. And that's okay. It's about finding the right fit for you, because what you start with, the attrition process, you'll eventually bring it to what you're looking for. And it's about finding the best, the right fit for you, not where people think it'd be a good fit for you necessarily, you know. And there's so many factors that go into that, but what will help, which school, and there's no perfect school, but what school will help prepare you for the next phase of your life and what you want to do.
So unofficial, official visits. So we can take 5 junior year now, is this correct?
You're allowed to take 5 total.
So 5, but starting junior year, we can do 5 official visits, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you can take 5 visits, official visits, unofficial visits. What's the difference? So maybe that will help with your process as well.
Official visits, the school will pay for it. They'll pay for you to come to campus. They'll pay for a meal while you're there, depending on, you know, if you go to a basketball game or a football game or you know, comp tickets to a soccer game, that type of thing. Unofficial, you pay your way there. And now everything has to go through for unofficial visits, has to go through the admissions office. And so that has changed a little bit recently. It used to be the coaches could do it, at least Division I, but the coaches can do for officials, but just not the unofficials. But both are very helpful.
Division II, most of the time, not most of the time, I shouldn't speak for other coaches who might be able to do it, but I would say it's less often that we're able to pay for you to come to campus in terms of a flight, but we can take, so official visit where you can pay, we can pay for your meals a lot of times. Unofficial, you can do, it doesn't have to go through admissions for Division II. You can come and do that. NAI, you can, most of them do not do officials, so to speak, where they pay, but you can come to an unofficial almost any time. Division III, I'm not as sure. But that's a good question.
I'll find that out for the clientele. So, anything to add on any of these questions?
I want to say,
Sorry, go ahead.
The only thing I want to say to the group, if you're still with us, well done. We're nearing an hour. We thought we could get it done in 35 minutes. So hopefully we've been somewhat entertaining. But I just want to say I'm sorry. I think this process has been really hard. And for those of you that are going into your junior and senior year, I mean, you juniors, you've had a hard soccer process with the rules changing and then now this happening. And so I'm sorry. My biggest, I guess, encouragement would be to stay motivated. There will be a time when we'll get to play again and we'll get to see you and you'll get to see your friends and enjoy the game again. And that time will come, but until then, stay motivated.
And I would just encourage, just keep asking questions. You can ask, you know, if you're past going into junior year, you can call coaches, ask them questions about their program. Ask your club coaches about colleges in general, or if they don't have the answer, they'll find it for you. But there's no silly questions. Keep asking questions, and at the end of the day, you'll find the best, the right fit for you.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you. So I'm going to stop the recording in just a minute, but we'll probably chat offline. Sorry, people, you're not going to see the offline stuff, but on behalf of everyone, I'd like to thank both of you for all your time, all your knowledge, all your wisdom, and all the help. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Neil.